Hi, I'm Doug. This is my wife, Susie. And this is our dog, Goose, a golden retriever. And so we've retired and we live in Florida. And we spend our summers not in Florida, but cruising on our boat, a 4788 Bayliner in the Pacific Northwest. And so we've decided to try something new, and that is to document some of our journeys and post them so that our friends and family and other boaters can look at them.
So before we retired, we lived in Washington State. So we cruised the Pacific Northwest and the Canadian Gulf Islands for 20 plus years. We thought this would be a fun way as we continue our adventures to share with family, friends, and our fellow boaters.
And this is our first YouTube video, so if you have any constructive feedback or comments, please leave them. And if you do want to see future videos, hit the subscribe button, and that way you'll be notified when we have new videos out. Thanks. So today's video is we're going to document and show you some of the highlights of our cruise this summer. This was 2024, and we cruised up from Washington State, where we currently have our boat, up through Canada to the Broughtons. And we call this our Farthest North Trip.
Yep. Each summer we're pushing a little bit farther north as we prepare for our big adventure.
And so it's kind of fun. We get up every day and we say, guess what? We're the farthest north we've ever been in our boat. And that's why we call it the Farthest North Trip. The stops we made, there's quite a, this is a pretty long trip, so we broke this video into two parts. This is part one of two, and we'll show you in a minute the ports that we stopped at, but this is from the San Juan Islands up to Laura Bay in British Columbia.
So whenever we're heading north, one of our first and most favorite stops is Montague in the Canadian Gulf Islands.
Yep, so on this trip, it was a short run because we left from Roche Harbor, fueled up. It was only a little over 20 miles, and so that's only a couple hour cruise up. Montague is a Nexus reporting station, and so we like using Montague to call in, and then this time we stopped there and had anchorage. It's a good anchorage. It's a fun place to visit. Mm-hmm. It gets crowded at times, but it seems like there's always room to be able to find an anchor spot.
And there's a public dock that you can run into. They do have a little store, little restaurant, walking to, and you know, the famous Hummingbird Cafe, you can catch a bus and go up into there. And so also they have a state park there as well that has all kinds of walking trails and beaches. So it's kind of like however much time you want to spend there, it's a great place to stop.
And then on a personal note, we got married in August, and so we're typically out boating. This stop coincided with our anniversary. So one of many that we've spent together out on the boat, somewhere anchored in some bay somewhere.
Yep, exactly where we want to be.
Stop on our trip after Montague was Ford Cove. And as you were mentioning earlier, sometimes you don't plan your stops. You kind of pick an area or you have bailout points. We didn't know where we were going to stop. We left Montague, we got out of the Canadian Gulf Islands. We, on this particular trip, you need to look right outside of Nanaimo. There's an area where they do military operations that you need to check whether or not you can move your boat through those areas or not. It was open for us, and so we shot up the Strait of Georgia, made it about halfway up, and then we settled in to Ford Cove.
That's as far north as we'd been at this time. There was Deep Bay and Ford Cove, so we just randomly picked one that was more of a direct route heading north.
Yep. So unfortunately, there was not room to anchor in the bay. There was not room at the marina. All that was left was, we ended up tying outside the breakwater. So no access to shore. The water was a little rough, so we didn't drop the dinghy. So it wasn't exactly a highlight of our trip.
And a little rough. It was pretty rough being tied outside that breakwater.
We did read about reported hiking trails and some fun things with Fort Cove. We never got to experience them, and so maybe they're there, maybe they're not.
Yep, so we got up early and took off. So our next stop was up at Gowlland Harbor, which is in Campbell River. And so we have anchored there before, and it's a great place to anchor when you're heading up farther north.
Yeah, so there's a set of islands in Gowland Bay that are called Rock Islands. They're actually a state park in Canada. They say that you can go there for lunch and picnics. I don't think anybody would. They're basically just rocks out of the water, but for us, fantastic spot to dinghy up, drop Goose off, let him get his shore time, and pretty convenient, although you just need to be careful because the getting off a dinghy in pretty deep water onto rocks sometimes is a little tricky.
And the seals like those rocks also.
Yeah. But Gowland, yeah, we've been there before. It's a fun place. You're going to see some fun videos of seals that were hunting fish and splashing. Yeah, good place to go. And then just a comment about Campbell River. We mentioned we didn't have our downrigger. Campbell River is a deep water fishery, and so you go out around the point, and really the people that we found out later that are doing really well fishing, they fish pretty deep. You got to be down a couple 100 feet, so you have to have the right downrigger weights and downrigger to be able to get down there. And of course, we didn't have it, so we didn't do very well fishing the first few days. So enjoy do you have something else to say?
Yeah, and from this bay, it's easy to dinghy over to the Discovery Bay Marina to explore that area.
Or to go out to dinner.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So our next stop, we wanted to get into the Broughtons. And so we were looking at our stops and where to go, and we had to go north through the Johnstone Strait. And unfortunately, there was a gale wind warning. Wind blowing from the northwest, pretty strong. And so we changed our mind, and instead of going up through Johnstone Pass, we went up and around so you can see the route. We went up and around and went into Desolation Sound instead. And we were really happy we did.
Beautiful, calm cruising, and we saw some amazing whales on this trip. They were swimming along the top, putting their side fins up, and just playing and having a good time.
As far as planning, if you go this way, the Yakulta Rapids, the Gillard Passage, and the Dent Rapids are 3 sets of rapids you have to go through. You can time it so that you can we hit I think all 3 at slack, or within pretty short duration. We had no problem getting through any of those.
In between, the second and third one is Blind Channel. And so we did stop into Blind Channel Marina for a night. And then,
Yeah, and Blind Channel is a nice marina. It had some limited provisions, good hiking trails. It was fun.
yeah, so it had a really cute store there. And they were a restaurant as well. We didn't try it this trip, but we might try it next trip. We heard good things about it.
So the next stop on our journey, we went from Blind Channel to Lagoon. And Lagoon is typically a marina stop for people. They have a really fun happy hour that they go out and get shrimp and provide for the happy hour, and everybody kind of potlucks it. We didn't stay in the marina, so we didn't get to participate in the happy hour. We anchored out. They did offer us a real nominal price day prep pass that allowed us access to all the trails, and no grief when we brought Goose then into shore for his runs. And so it was worth it. It was fine. They were very polite. I would probably stay there. I wouldn't hesitate to stay there. It was a nice, fun, friendly marina.
And bring an extra of your burgees, because they do collect burgees in kind of this open room up above at the top of the marina. So it's real fun to check out all the burgees up there.
Yeah. And we had our downrigger ball. And so we went out and had our first successful fishing trip, got our limit of king salmon, and it was the first of many trips out that were really successful.
I'm hooked on salmon fishing now.
Our next stop on our trip is we left Lagoon and we traveled to Echo Bay, over 30 nautical miles.
Yep. And we took a lunch stop at Kwatsi.
Yeah, so Kwatsi is a former village of they call them now First Nation. It was the Canadian Native Americans. And it's a fun little lunch stop. great scenery. It was just a beautiful trip up. The anchorage was a little rocky. I didn't do a full set. I did kind of a lunch set, but we actually, in very little wind and current, we drug. And so we actually were going to run into shore, and we decided not to. We decided to pull up early and make our way to Echo Bay.
In the bay there, they have really steep cliffs, and it's just a gorgeous scenery area.
Yeah, so if you've been to Princess Louisa, it's like a mini version of Princess Louisa.
So then we went into Echo Bay, and as we know, they're going through a change of ownership. So there's a lot of work in progress. They're very nice and accommodating, and fun marina to stop into.
Yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to stop there. It was a great marina. Terrific location, fantastic fishing right across the bay. They had a fun little hike to Billy Proctor's museum.
And that's why we had selected that marina there to stop in, was so we could go to this museum. And it had all kinds of items that have been collected over the years. So it's fun. They even had medicine bottles back from the 1700s and things to see. So very fun. From Echo Bay, then we went to Laura Cove. So this is just a remote bay that we had seen as we were researching and discovering, and it looked like a fun stop to pull into.
Yeah, so it was a really short trip, 5 nautical miles. We didn't know, this was one of those places, we just didn't know if we were going to stop there or not. We were going to poke our nose in and take a look at it, because the bay is very, very small. And we poked our nose in, we looked at it, and we said, hey, let's try an anchor. And so we had one miss set, and then we
did it again.
Did it again. She said, try it again. So we tried it again, and then we stern tied, and we ended up staying 3 days there. 2 days, nobody there but us. We were there by ourselves. It was beautiful. You can, so you'll see the drone videos we have. It was a spectacular place.
And to me, this is what I wanted to capture when I went to the Broughtons, was this little bay. We were in there by ourselves, and we were, just kind of surrounded by that undeveloped land, and you could hear the activity and the animals going on. Goose was kind of checking out the woods, seeing what was there. So made me a little cautious. I didn't really want to go to land because I couldn't see too far into the forest there, but great for kayaking around, and I was very glad we stayed there.
And I'll say the only downside, we tried fishing, salmon fishing. It was so close to where we had really good salmon fishing that I thought it was going to be spectacular. It was spectacular, but not for salmon. We tried to fish, and every time we dropped a lure in the water and tried to get it down, rockfish would attack it. We had 2 rockfish on one hook. We just couldn't fish for salmon because of how many rockfish there were. And we weren't targeting rockfish, so we didn't keep any, so.
And this is an area that we waited out a storm. So we saw one was coming, so we made sure we were in a very protected area, and sure enough, it rained solid for about 2 days. So it was a good location to hold out in.
So enjoy the scenery in the following videos and pictures. this concludes part 1 of our trips. Please tune in for part 2, where we'll cover the rest of our journey north and then back to Everett.
Sounds great.
And again, if you like the video and you want to be notified of future videos that are put on, just hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified. Thank you. Have a good day.
Later from the Phoenix.